Hi, boys and girls. Hope you're having a great week. I know it's a little rainy today, but a great day to stay in and listen to a story from the Old Testament and do a couple of sheets that I'm going to send you and that your mama can print off or your dad on their computers. Last week we talked about Joshua, that God chose Joshua to be the leader after Moses had passed away. And Joshua was going to get to lead all the Israelites into the promised land. Well, they came to the Jordan River because the Jordan River, once you cross the Jordan River, they would be in the promised land. And when they got to the river, they were like, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? God told Joshua what to do. So then the next morning, Joshua came out and said to the priest, and here are our priests, and they were carrying the ark. And if you remember, the Ark of the Covenant is where the 10 Commandments are that God gave Moses. God gave Moses. And the 10 Commandments, the tablets, rested inside this. Joshua told the priest that they were to lift up the tabernacle, and that's what they called it, the Ark of the Covenant, and to go to the river. Go to the river. And they went, well, wait a minute. This thing is heavy. We'll drown. We can't swim holding this. Joshua said, God said to go to the river and stand. So they walked in. And you know how when you walk to a river or a little pool, right at the edge, it's not as steep. So you can stand there and the water sort of laps around your feet. Well, that's what they did. So they walked, they lifted the ark up and they carried it and they stood there in where that water was just lapping around their feet. And then God did something amazing, boys and girls. The river stopped flowing. The water stopped. And all of a sudden, there was sand. And the priests were able to carry the ark across the river to the other side. Wow. Remember, this happened when Moses and them crossed the Red Sea. Almost the exact same thing happened. Here it is happening again. Isn't it wonderful? Well, once they got to the other side, God told Joshua to tell each of the different tribes. And there were how many, boys and girls? Do you remember how many tribes of Israel there are? 10 plus 2. So how many is that? 12. God told Joshua to tell each member of the tribe, of one of the leaders of the tribe, to come and get a stone from the river, put it on the other side. So I'm going to move it out and you're going to watch me. And then you're going to be able to do this afternoon, not with real stones, but if you have real stones at home, you might want to do this. And told them to lay the stones and pile them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Are you counting with me? How many left? 2 more. 10, 11, 12. And they built, it looks sort of like, what? A table, an altar. And that's what they called it, an altar. And he told them to do that and to leave the 12 stones there, because then anytime anybody came near the river, they would see this altar of stones, of 12 stones, and they would remember what God had done for the Israelites, had helped them escape from Egypt and slavery, brought them across the wilderness and saved them and fed them food while they were there. And now they were finally entering the promised land that God had promised them so many years ago. It's finally coming true. And this altar near the Jordan River was a reminder to anyone who came by that this is what God had done for them. He had kept his promise. Remember, we talked about that since Noah. God has promised, and he always keeps his promises. Here's the interesting part. Boys and girls, if you go to the Jordan River today, to that spot, these rocks are still there. If you've been, or anyone you know has been to Jordan and in Israel to the Promised Land, you can go visit this exact spot. I think that is just amazing. Just think, over thousands of years ago, they placed these rocks there, and they are still there. Isn't that wonderful? Look how wonderful God is, and He keeps His promises. He promised the Israelites that He would free them from slavery and bring them to the Promised Land. And this altar reminds us of that. And before we go, you're going to get a little paper that looks like this. You're going to cut it out. It looks like this. Here's the river. And I've already got 6 stones on that. And then you are going to cut out the other stones. And you are going to place your 12 stones, however you want, on the altar and make your own. And then you might want to glue this to a piece of paper, and I'm going to send the Bible verse, and you might want to copy and put that on there, and put this up on your door or on a bulletin board if you have one, or stick it on the refrigerator with a magnet. Picture is to remind you that God is always with us, and God keeps His promises. Because you know why? Why, boys and girls, does God keep His promises? Because He loves us. And that's the important thing to remember, is that God keeps His promises because He loves us. Let's say our prayer. Dear God, thank You for loving us so much. And help us to be able to show others Your love. And all of God's people say, amen.